Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we recently did a best solar weapons to dominate PvE video, and now we're going to go ahead and do the best arc weapons to dominate PvE. Of course, these are going to consist of only legendary weapons, no exotics. We're going to do best exotics, heavy, special, primary, arc, solar, void, everything like that in separate videos as time goes on. So that's why there's not going to be any Trinity Gold mentioned in this video. Remember, if you do ever want to get your games and the DLC for a cheaper price, you make sure to head over to Instant Gaming, top link in the description. Black Friday deals are on and it's pretty awesome. So if you ever want to get some good games and their DLC for a cheaper price, or some DLC for your current game that you already have, head over to Instant Gaming, top link in the description. Oh, and G Fuel is having their BOGO sale for Black Friday, buy one get one, which is pretty awesome. If you ever want to stay hydrated, kick some ass while you're gaming, G Fuel's the best drink in the business to do that. Code Kree at checkout for 20% off. All right, let's go ahead and delve into the primary arc weapons. First, we're going to start off with the auto rifle of choice here. Now, this should come nobody's surprise when I mention to you the good old sweet Sorrow from Season 16. Really do enjoy using this weapon. I've talked about it a lot of times in the past, but the best role for this bad boy is easily going to be stats for all and one for all. You're giving yourself a lot of bang for your buck with these perks, including a 35% damage buff with one for all. It's a good quirk and it's a good perk. On top of that, you do have something like Atlantic as the origin trait that already stacks with your resilience, just making you even more difficult to bring down. It's a 720 RPM, rapid fire frame style, and we love ourselves a sweet Sorrow. These days, you can get it from the Vox Obscura whenever it is in the Pinnacle Exotic Mission Rotator slot. For bows, we do have some pretty decent options. However, I'm going to mention to you the Tripwire Canary, good old Archer's Tempo and Explosive Head, the classic bow roll, or you could go with Frenzy in the fourth column. But definitely roll with that good old Archer's Tempo in column 3. It is a lightweight frame style bow, and it can be pretty good as well. Although, with it being from Season 19, you're going to have to get it from the Operation Seraph Shield exotic mission when it is in the exotic Pinnacle Mission Rotator slot. Let's go ahead and talk about a hand cannon. Let me tell you about the knob. Not a doorknob, but the Nation of Beast from Last Wish. As we know, Last Wish weapons did get their reprisal back in Season of the Deep, and this 140 RPM hand cannon can roll with Dragonfly in the third column and Volt Shot in the fourth column. Very, very strong hand cannon, especially after the hand cannon buff. And I know I'm going through these a little bit quicker than normal, but with so many different arc weapons to talk about, we are trying to hit this like a rapid fire style of video. Another decent hand cannon that I know I will get flack for if I don't mention it would be the Prosperity from Deep Stone Crypt. It is a 180 that can roll Frenzy and Volt Shot. Pulse rifles. What if I told you about the good old Oversoul Edict from Crota's End? This pulse rifle, believe it or not, can roll with Volt Shot as well, as it is an arc pulse rifle. It is a rapid fire frame 540 RPM pulse rifle, and it does have some pretty decent perks to pair with Volt Shot. You could go with inline action, which is what I have on mine, as weapon hits grant handling and reload speed, as you just keep stacking it up to 5 stacks. Can help speed up reload to proc Volt Shot more consistently. However, it does also have everyone's good old favorite perk, tried and true, Demolitionist, although that won't really pair as well with Volt Shot because you need to manually reload in order to have Volt Shot proc and ready to go. Still a decent pulse rifle, and is from the Crota's End raid if you would like to go ahead and get it. I am going to move over to the Scout Rifle now, as this is actually a pretty nasty Scout Rifle. It is a lightweight frame, 200 RPM Scout, and there's a lot of good perks, including Volt Shot in the fourth column, and its only true competition in the fourth column would be the good old Explosive Payload. If you're going to use an Explosive Payload roll, you could go with Shoot to Loot, Demolitionist, or Rapid Hit in the third column to pair with it. And if you're going for a Volt Shot roll, you could go with Demo. However, if you want to really get the best synergy with Volt Shot, I would definitely go for Rapid Hit. Pretty strong Scout Rifle from Season of the Plunder. The only problem is that Season of the Plunder weapons aren't the easiest weapons to get. They're not in any of the exotic mission Pinnacle rotators. So you really are just waiting for either Zur or Banshee to sell it, in which you could then go ahead and buy them. If you really wanted to, use your Deep Sight Harmonizers to get that pattern. Now, this does stand true for our next weapon we're going to be talking about, because we're going to be talking about another Season of the Plunder weapon. a weapon that I have really slept on in its time being in the game. We're talking about the ARC sidearm, the Brigadon's Law. The thing is actually kind of a monster. I've started playing around with it a little bit. It is a rapid fire frame sidearm. It fires really, really quick, 450 RPM. It is also a volt shot sidearm. Well, a volt shot weapon, but this is a sidearm. This thing is really, really good. I think the only perk to actually use on this weapon in its fourth column is volt shot, and you could either pair it with feeding frenzy and or threat detector in the third column. I may have to make a full-on video just for this sidearm, as I have slept on it for a very long time. Now, let us go ahead and round out the ARC primary weapons by talking about one of the most popular weapons in the game. Our ARC SMG of choice is of course going to be none other than the Ikelos SMG version 3 from Season of the Seraph. You can farm it from the Operation Seraph Shield exotic pinnacle mission when it is in the rotator slot. This is your bread and butter volt shot SMG, and its best perks to pair with it in column 3 are definitely gonna have to be feeding frenzy. It does have shoot to loot, but feeding frenzy and volt shot on the Ikelos SMG is a very, very good combo. And even for it being an aggressive frame 720 RPM SMG, it is still an absolute monster and a very popular primary weapon in the sandbox. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and move over to the ARC special weapons of choice. We'll get the worst one out the way, which is the Glaive, MATREXX Whisper from Season 17. It's the only ARC Glaive in the game, so there you go. Not a big Glaive guy, I'm not going to continue talking about it. Let's talk about the Fusion Rifle. Now, I have two here that I would like to mention to you. First, we have our rapid fire frame fusion rifle. This is going to be the Irritive Loop from Neomuna. This is a volt shot fusion rifle, and that is its main claim to fame, it being the volt shot fusion rifle, and it's a rapid fire frame. You could pair with lead from gold or compulsive reloader in column 3. I believe most people are definitely going to go with lead from gold. And even with the volt shot nerf, this thing can still be used in some low man situations. If you do want to get like a volt shot on the target, it can still be pretty good. A stronger just workhorse fusion rifle that you can use in damage if you were on like tractor cannon duty or something like that would definitely have to be the Loaded Question. The Aramite, which is a solar high-impact frame fusion rifle, is very popular because of its controlled burst and envious assassin roll. And the Loaded Question is just the ARC version of that fusion rifle, which is kind of weird because no one ever seems to talk about the Loaded Question, hardly ever. And as we all know, Controlled Burst is the fusion rifle perk of choice. Landing all bolts in a shot will allow you to decrease this weapon's charge time and give it a 20% damage buff. A perfect perk for fusion rifles, and you can roll auto-loading holster, demolitionist, or envious assassin in the third column to pair with it. Very strong fusion rifle, and it is a high impact frame. Give it a try. ARC shotguns. Ladies and gentlemen, if I told you Gambit had a purpose, not for stocking up bounties, but for having the best ARC shotgun in the game and one of the overall just best shotguns in the entire game, that being none other than the Deadweight. Although it should be called like the Great Weight or something, because this thing is definitely not Deadweight. A rapid fire frame shotgun with a slew of good perks. However, keep in mind, because this is a vendor weapon, its perk pool is absurdly thick. Your best perk options in column 3 are going to be auto-loading holster, lead from gold, maybe grave robber, and then a cope roll of field prep. In the fourth column, your options are pretty open, my boy. A lot of doors to pick or go through. Vorpal, trench barrel, the classic shotgun perk of 1-2 punch. Demolitionist, not in the fourth column, man. Frenzy, and the niche surrounded. You have a lot of good options and decent opportunities to get at least a decent ARC shotgun anytime you go to decrypt this weapon, and I would definitely say it's definitely worth spending your Gambit Ingrams if you have any of them on the Deadweight shotgun. Really good weapon. ARC snipers are very limited, so I can only briefly mention the Galu RR3, Overflow, and Focus Fury. It's the only decent ARC sniper rifle that we have, like at all. ARC snipers are very much so a desert at this current moment in time, my man. Similar to snipers, ARC trace rifles, there's really not much except for one. The Path of Least Resistance, although Double Special got nerfed, which in turn made trace rifle viability and usage definitely go down a bit. This thing still has some pretty decent utility, especially on Cenotaph Warlocks, as this is the only shoot to loot trace rifle that you can actively go out and get, and it is also a volt shot trace rifle for whatever that might be worth. Still pretty usable in some GMs on Cenotaph Warlocks, and if you do want to go ahead and get one or try and get its pattern, it is a season 19 weapon, meaning from the Operation Seraph Shield exotic mission, whenever it is in the Pinnacle mission rotator slot, is going to be your best bet to go ahead and get one. Shoot to loot volt shot is the perfect role to get, and honestly the only role to get on this trace rifle. Now, you know I had to save the best for last when we're talking special arc weapons, because we got to talk about the building a gun, baby. Straight from the Val the Disciple raid. This thing is an absolute monster. Its legal name is the Forbearance, however, I like to call it Building a Gun, because it destroys a room of ads with one shot, and it heals you. Kind of like what a build does, but it's a gun. The god roll for this bad boy is easily Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction, all on a wave frame. On top of that, you add in Soul Drinker, which heals you based on the number of hits. This thing will save your life just by reloading it because of its origin trait. The perfect wave frame that cannot be beat, so the fact that they're adding another arc wave frame next season sucks. Where's my updated solar wave frame, Bungie? We all know how goated the Forbearance is, aka Building a Gun, so let us go ahead and talk about arc heavy weapons. Arc heavy weapons, let's first talk about the first ever aggressive 3-round burst linear fusion rifle that is none other than the Storm Chaser from the Duality Dungeon. Of course, we're not quite in the linear fusion rifle meta anymore, however, good linear could still be pretty useful on some solo content just because of its sheer ammo economy, or even a Grandmaster for that matter. Even though they're not the kings of the damage meta anymore, they still have very good ammo efficiency, and the Storm Chaser has some pretty decent perks to it. Third column, you're going to go with either auto-loading holster or clown cartridge, and then in the fourth column, you definitely want to shoot for firing line, but you could definitely cope with frenzy. Vorpal's there as well, but Vorpal is only 10% on heavy weapons, so definitely try and get yourself one with firing line. A pretty decent linear fusion rifle, however, it's not beating out something like the Cataclysmic, and that is part of the reason why it's not seen that much nearly as it was when it was first released, but it is still a pretty decent linear fusion rifle nonetheless. Now, for heavy grenade launchers, there's only one option, the Wendigo. Grenade launchers can definitely be pretty useful in low mans or solo situations, and they are going to be getting an inventory buff sometime in the final shape. But for the Wendigo, you don't have to overthink anything. Your best bet in column 3 is definitely auto-loading holster, although clown cartridge is still pretty good. And then in the fourth column, you definitely want to get explosive light, but you could cope with frenzy or try out a cascade point roll. However, because this is a heavy grenade launcher, getting spike grenades in column 2 is also a mandatory. Just keep that in mind if you are trying to get a good roll of the Wendigo. And it's a nightfall weapon, in case you didn't know it was a nightfall weapon. Now, the best arc LMG we didn't quite get until this season of the Witch, and it is also another Crota's End weapon, the Song of Iryu, baby. Dude, this is a perk pool. I talked about this perk pool a lot before, but dude, it is so good. Column 3, you have some pretty decent options. Reconstruction, the classic heavy weapon perk, rewind rounds, and everybody's favorite Demolitionist, all of which are in column 3. Column 4, you got some more juicers. Cascade Point is going to be your niche fun perk. However, your actual strong perks are going to be Sword Logic, Bait and Switch, and or Target Lock. Sword Logic is great for just mowing down ads and just keeping up a nice little damage buff. Bait and Switch is a 35% damage buff that can be proc any time without having to get a kill. And then Target Lock can be pretty decent as well with something like Reconstruction, so long as you're not missing any shots and keeping Target Lock ramping up. On top of that beautiful Cursed Thrall origin trait, you have yourself an absolute behemoth, Giga Chad of an LMG, and I would go as far as to say it's the best LMG in the game. It's so good. Now for swords. A sword for like actual DPS and damage would be the Bequest with Relentless Strikes and Surrounded, as it has the same impact as Lament, and you can just light attack with it and put in some pretty darn good numbers. However, I think the best and most popular, most used arc sword is the Half-Truce from Dares of Eternity because of its Eager Edge perk. How often are you actually going to be using a sword for DPS outside of something like Crota? Not very often, but how many times and how often are you going to have an Eager Edge sword equipped just for everyday anything? Like, if you're not in a serious fight, aren't you going to just have an Eager Edge sword on just for movement purposes? I think so. That's how I operate. I know that's how a lot of other people operate. So the overall best arc sword in the game would have to be the Half-Truce, just because of the fact that it has Eager Edge. Plain and simple. And now let's finish up this video with one of the most classic weapons in the game at this point. We're now going to be talking about the Arc rocket launcher, which will come to no surprise when I mention the Hothead, and of course we do have the great value version of the Hothead Crucible, which is the Blowout. They are both adaptive frame rocket launchers. However, the Hothead is definitely better with its perk pool not being nearly as slick and having other options outside of Demo Frenzy and Demo Explosive Light, which is the only role you can really go for with the Blowout. Maybe Field Prep, but we're just going to continue to talk about the Hothead for the remainder of the video. Obviously, at this point, the Hothead is a little bit outclassed in terms of just sheer damage capabilities in terms of rockets, because we have bait and switch rockets in the game now. However, it still has a really good role that I like to use in Nightfalls and some other niche situations with Field Prep and Clown Cartridge. It's like Bipod, but without losing any damage. Just sheer volume of rocket spam in a quick amount of time. And it's brain dead easy damage to do. Just crouch and shoot rockets, reload 2 with Clown Cartridge, and shoot 2 rockets until you're completely out of ammo. It does have other options in the third column with auto-loading holster and demolitionist. However, in the fourth column, with Explosive Light being its best damage perk, you're not going to be using it to absolutely douse and overwhelm bosses like you can with bait and switch rocket launchers, which is why I mainly use it these days with Field Prep and Clown Cartridge. Not the best rocket launcher in the game anymore, but it's still a really good rocket with a very manageable perk pool. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments what your favorite role for the Hothead is in the game currently. There you have it, everybody. The best arc weapons to dominate PvE. Like, comment, subscribe. Adios.